Hi there, this is Jake Donnelly, the moderator of Jewish Conservatives on Locals.com. In today's post, just the second for this community, I'm going to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart. And it's something that came up all of last summer during the Black Lives Matter protest. That is the topic of kneeling. Now, for me, as a Jewish conservative American, kneeling is something that I say I will never do. The reason for that is, quite like this group, twofold. One, because I'm Jewish, and two, because I'm a conservative. Now, the part of the Jewishness that comes in with talking about the reason that I won't ever kneel is the fact that kneeling has never gone well for Jews. In fact, bending our will to any group has never gone well. Our history is replete with circumstances that, when we give in to the mob, things do not go well for us. The word pogrom has only been around for a little bit more than a century, and yet every single time there is a pogrom, and I mean going back more than a millennia, it ends up poorly for the Jews. Whether we're talking about in Russia, whether we're talking about back in Israel, or even if we're talking about instances like riots here in the United States. Every single culture that the Jews have been a part of, with almost no exceptions, whenever there has been a culture that attacks the Jews and wants the Jews to bend to their will, and the Jews do that, things do not go well for them. So you will never, and I mean ever, see me kneeling for something unless I'm playing a game and somebody has gotten hurt, or I hope one day, Baruch Hashem, that I'll be in front of God and I will have to kneel in front of God. Other than that, you will never see me kneeling, because as a Jew, you shouldn't kneel. The Germans made us kneel. The Russians made us kneel. And when there's ever been riots here in the United States, people have also tried to compel us to kneel. It is something that when Jews have acquiesced and done what the larger and louder crowd has told us to do, things have not gone well for the Jews. So for that reason, as a Jewish person, I would never kneel. Now, secondarily, as an American, I would also never kneel. And the reason for that is because, in my opinion, it does show disrespect to America and American values. Now, we're not going to get too in-depth on this subject right now today, but when we think back to the summer and the BLM riots, we think back to the fact that a bunch of police were kneeling with the rioters, not protesters, rioters. Now, in some of these instances, you could at least understand why people were kneeling. It was because they wanted to quell the furor that was making its way through the protesters/riots. But now looking back on everything, doesn't it seem just a little bit weird now that we know that people are only going to get upset for one type of riot and not another? Doesn't it seem just a little bit much? In my opinion, the answer to that question is an obvious yes. But it's also twofold. If you're a Black American and you are kneeling, I think it is doing a disgrace and a disservice to the history of Black Americans. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, quite simply, when you look back through the history of America and Black Americans, obviously, it is not a good one. Why? Slavery, right? Obvious. But in my opinion, it's doing a disservice to people like Frederick Douglass, who, while born a slave, worked his way into freedom and became one of the, notorious is not the right word, but one of the most respected Americans of all time for his courage, for his knowledge, and for his Americanism. But did Frederick Douglass ever kneel? No, he did not. Did the Tuskegee Airmen ever kneel? Did the 320th Balloon Barrage Battalion, a great name by the way, because I love alliteration, did they ever kneel? No, they did not. And neither did the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, which is the regiment that everybody, at least if you've seen the movie Glory, everybody knows about, thanks to a beautiful job of acting by Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, but I repeat myself when I say beautiful acting, as well as Matthew Broderick and Carrie Hughes, whose last name I can nor will ever be able to pronounce. But when you look back at the history of America, and specifically the history of Black Americans in the United States, to me it does not make sense to kneel. It is almost minimizing the struggle of those people, because if the people that were in the 54th Massachusetts Regiment did not kneel, if the Tuskegee Airmen did not kneel, if the people in the 320th Balloon Barrage Battalion did not kneel, nor did Frederick Douglass or any of what I will call the freedom fighters, the abolitionist fighters, the black Americans who deserve freedom just as much as anybody else and had to go through a whole hell of a lot worse than what modern day black Americans are going through. If they never kneeled, then I don't think any American should kneel, because they are the ones that had the right to kneel. But did they? No, they did not. So if you look at the history of black Americans who did not kneel, and now you look at it from a Jewish perspective and realize how few Jews should kneel, or what happens when Jews do kneel, and what did happen when Jews do kneel in the past, well, now it kind of makes it obvious that you should never kneel, because that belief system, that philosophy, the idea that you have in your head that tells you to kneel, well, it's probably not American enough. Even if you believe it in your heart of hearts, there is still supposed to be a line that you do not cross in America. And as a Jew, as an American, that line to me is not kneeling. That is why you will never, ever see me kneeling for anything besides a hurt player on an athletic field, or hopefully the day where I or anybody else, everybody else, gets to come in contact with God. Beyond that, you will never see me kneel because of my Judaism and because of my Americanism. Thank you for listening to this, just my second post here on Jewish Conservatives. I'm Jake Donnelly. Remember, if you want to support Jewish Conservatives, please go to the member tab and click on support and sign up there. Give whatever denomination, whatever amount of money that you feel is fit. I know it's early on here, but any little amount helps. And hey, I want to hear what you have to say, what you have to write, what you have to think. I want to hear all of your ideas, even and actually especially if I don't agree with them. So thank you for listening here on Jewish Conservatives. I'll see you next time. This has been Jake Donnelly. See you next time, folks.